The man who saved my life is the reason I almost died. He didn't find me that night. He was waiting for me. A man I had never met knew my blood type. There was no way he should have known that. And he wasn't in shock. He didn't panic. He didn't hesitate. He walked straight to me like he already knew exactly where I would be. He said my name, Zoe, like he'd been saying it for years. The last thing I remember before the crash was the rain. It was late, past midnight. I had just finished a double shift. My whole body felt like it had been wrung out and left on the floor. The road was empty. That's what I liked about driving home that late. No one around. Just me, the rain, and the sound of my own breathing. And for a second, I thought I saw someone standing on the side of the road. And then my brake didn't respond. I pushed it down. Nothing. I pushed harder. Nothing. And the curve was right there. I don't remember the impact. I remember a sound. Metal, glass, then silence. And then a voice. Low, calm, like someone who had all the time in the world. He said, Zoe, stay with me. Not hey, not are you okay? Not oh my God. My name. He said my name. And the way he said it sounded like someone who had been saying my name for a long time, privately, quietly, alone. He pulled me out of the car, got me to the ground, checked my head before I even knew it was bleeding. When the ambulance arrived, he told them my blood type without hesitating. One of the paramedics looked at him and asked, Are you her husband? And he said no. And then he looked at me, just for a second, and said nothing. I should have heard that differently. I didn't. I was terrified. This man had just pulled me out of a car. He knew my name. He knew my blood type. And his hands didn't shake once. I thought, this is the person who just saved my life. That's all I thought. That's all I let myself think. And then everything went dark. I woke up in a hospital bed, white ceiling, monitors beeping, the smell of antiseptic that I knew too well from the other side. And there he was. Minsu, sitting in the chair next to my bed, not standing by the door like a stranger waiting to check if I was okay. Sitting, close, like he belonged there, like he had always belonged there. He looked up when I moved and said, You're awake. Calm, like he'd been waiting for exactly this moment. I didn't ask him why he was still there. I didn't ask how long he'd been sitting in that chair. I just thought. He stayed. And after a night like that was everything. His name was Minsu. He was quiet in a way that felt safe. He listened more than he talked. And when he did speak, it was always the right thing. He never pushed, never rushed. He just stayed. And after 2 weeks of being alone in a hospital bed, a man who stays starts to feel like everything. He came back a few days later, then again that weekend. 2, sometimes 3 times a week. Never empty-handed. Not flowers, not generic get-well gifts. Actual food. My exact order from a place 3 blocks from my apartment. A place I had never mentioned. I told myself he must have asked one of the nurses. I told myself a lot of things those 2 weeks. It was toward the end of my 2nd week when my best friend Nia came to visit. She walked in just as Minsu was leaving. They passed each other in the doorway. She watched him go. Then she turned to me and said, "Who is that?" I told her. The accident. He was the one who pulled me out. She looked back toward the hallway. He was already gone. She said, "Do I know him?" I laughed. No. She hesitated. Weird. He feels like someone I've seen before. I was discharged on a Thursday. He was waiting outside with an umbrella. It was raining again. I remember thinking, what are the odds? But it wasn't luck. It was timing. And I wouldn't understand what that meant until everything fell apart. We started dating about a month after I was discharged. Nothing dramatic about how it happened. He just kept showing up. And at some point, I stopped waiting for him to leave. He was attentive in a way I wasn't used to. Not suffocating, not overwhelming, just present. He remembered things, small things. The name of the coffee shop I mentioned once in passing, the way I took my tea. I thought, this is just what it feels like when someone actually pays attention. I didn't think about it any harder than that. The first time something felt off. I couldn't even name it. We were at dinner. I was running late from a shift. By the time I got there, he'd already ordered. I sat down and looked at the plate. It was exactly what I would have chosen. I laughed and said, "How did you know?" He smiled and said, "Lucky guess." I believed him. We go to places I'd never mentioned, a park I used to walk through alone, and he'd already know his way around. No hesitation, no phone, no map, just like he'd been there before. I told myself he just knew the city well. I told myself a lot of things. A few months in, I asked about his place. He said it was being renovated, said it'd been a mess for months. I didn't push. He always came to mind anyway. It felt natural at the time. One night, I decided to introduce him to Nia, my best friend, the person who knows me better than anyone. We had dinner, the three of us. The evening was easy, comfortable even, until Nia looked at Minsu across the table and said, "Okay, I have to ask. Have we met before? You look so familiar to me." Minsu smiled. "Easy, relaxed." He said, "I don't think so. I just have one of those faces." Nia laughed. Then she turned to me. "Zoe, don't you think so? Doesn't he look familiar to you?" I looked at him. Really look. And I said, "Yeah, I've thought that too, actually." Minsu said nothing, just picked up his glass. After he left, Nia and I stayed up talking. She said she liked him. She said he seemed caring. And then she got quiet for a second. I asked her what was wrong. She shook her head. "Nothing. She stopped. "He just really looks like someone I know." I said, "Maybe you just passed each other on the street or something." She smiled and said, "Yeah, probably." But she didn't look convinced. Things moved fast after that. Maybe too fast. He started asking about the future, casually at first. "Do you ever think about settling down? What kind of house would you want someday? Do you want kids?" I answered honestly every time. I thought that's what people did when they were falling in love. Asked questions, learned each other. But the questions kept coming every few weeks, a little more specific each time. And I started to feel it, that quiet, low hum of something, moving faster than I was ready for. I told myself, he's just serious about me. That's a good thing. That's what you wanted. I was very good at telling myself things. A few months later, he told me the renovation was finally done. He wanted me to see the place. I remember being excited. We'd been dating for almost a year, and I'd never seen where he lived. When he opened the door, the first thing I noticed was how calm it felt. Clean lines, warm light, simple, exactly the kind of space I'd always wanted. I walked through slowly, taking it in. I said, "I love this." He smiled and said, "I thought you might." And then I saw the bookshelf. I stopped. The titles, one by one, books I owned, books I'd read, books I'd never told anyone about, sitting right there on his shelf. Not just the same titles, the same order, exactly the same. I stood there for a second too long, and then he said, "See anything you like?" I laughed it off. I said, "We just have the same taste." He smiled. and change the subject, but I stood there for another second before I followed him. A month later, he suggested we take a trip, just the two of us. A few days away, I didn't think much of it. We drove down to the coast, checked into a small hotel, spent the day just walking around. It was easy, quiet, the kind of day that doesn't feel like anything special until you look back on it. That evening, he said, "Let's take a walk." We ended up on the beach. And then I saw it. Soft lights strung between posts along the sand. Candles, flowers, just enough, not too much. I stopped walking. My heart was doing something strange. Because this was exactly it. Not a restaurant, not a crowd, not a big performance. Just the water, just the light, just us. I had imagined this exact scene more times than I could count. Not similar, not close, exact. The kind of thing you don't say out loud because it sounds too specific, too much to hope for. And somehow, it was all here. He turned to me, got down on one knee. And my first thought wasn't yes or no. My first thought was, how did he know? I had never described this to him. Not once, not even close. And then I thought, maybe I posted something once. An old photo, a Pinterest board, something I forgot about. He was looking up at me, waiting, and I said yes. Because he had pulled me out of that car. Because he showed up every time. Because he knew my order and my books, and the exact kind of quiet I needed. Because he felt like home in a way I couldn't explain. I said yes, and I told myself the rest was just coincidence. We started planning the wedding. Small, simple, the kind of wedding I'd always wanted. Somehow, he already seemed to know that too. It was a few weeks into the planning when Nia called, late at night. I almost didn't pick up. She said, "Zoe, I need you to do something for me right now." Her voice was different, tight, careful, like she was trying not to scare me. I sat up. "What's wrong?" She said, "I need you to find your graduation album, right now. Do you still have it?" I hadn't thought about that album in years. I found it at the back of my closet. Nia stayed on the phone. She told me what page to turn to. Class photos. Senior year. She told me the row, the number. I found the face and the name underneath it. I didn't say anything for a long time. Nia said, "Zoe." I still didn't say anything because the boy in that photo, quiet, unremarkable, sitting in the back row, was Minsu. A version of him I almost didn't recognize. Younger, smaller somehow. But the eyes were the same. And then it hit me. Not all at once, like something slowly coming into focus. A boy, high school, quiet, unremarkable, the kind of person you don't really notice until they're standing right in front of you. He had given me a letter once, and a small gift, and he had said, in front of everyone, that he liked me. I had said no, not cruelly, but not quietly either. And I remembered his face afterward, the way he just went quiet and disappeared. I hadn't thought about him since, not once, until now. I hung up, and I sat there in the dark, holding the graduation album, looking at his face, thinking about every single thing I had told myself, every explanation, every coincidence, every lucky guess. And for the first time, none of it felt lucky. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, holding the graduation album, staring at his face. My first thought was simple. Why didn't he tell me? We had dated for over a year. He had never once mentioned that we went to the same school, not casually, Not in passing, not even when I talked about high school. Never. The next morning, Minsu called me like usual. I didn't pick up. I sent a text instead. Not feeling well. Need a few days to rest. And then I called in sick at work. I started going back through everything, not looking for anything specific, just looking. The coffee order, the park he already knew, the books on his shelf, the proposal on the beach, every single thing I had explained away, one by one. And the more I looked, the less any of it felt like coincidence. That's when I remembered the insurance papers. Minsu had helped me with everything after the accident. The calls, the paperwork, the settlement. He had handled most of it. I had been grateful at the time. I hadn't looked at those papers in over a year. I got up, found the folder at the back of my drawer, sat down at the table, and started reading. It was a single line, easy to miss. I had missed it the first time. Brake line failure. Cause external damage. Someone had cut it. I read it again and again. External damage. Not wear, not age. External. I sat very still for a long time. And then I thought about that night. The road, the rain, and the figure I thought I'd seen. Standing on the side of the road. The one I had told myself was nothing. He kept texting, checking in. How are you feeling? Do you need anything? I can come over if you want. I replied just enough to keep him away. Still not great. Need more rest. Don't come. I'll call you soon. Each time I put my phone down, my hands were shaking. I called the insurance company. Minsu had handled most of the claim, but the policy was in my name. I requested the full accident investigation file. Every document, every photo, every record. They sent it over the next day, and that's when I found it. Buried in the back of the file, a still image from a traffic camera, the intersection, 40 minutes before the crash. And there he was, standing on the side of the road, in the exact spot, not passing through, not walking, just standing, like someone who had been waiting for an accident to happen, like someone who already knew I was coming. I looked at it 4 times, 5, and then I closed the laptop. If he was already there, if he had been waiting, if all of this was planned, then nothing was real. Not the accident, not the rescue, not the books, not the beach, not the ring on my finger, nothing, not even me. I thought about the boy in the graduation photo, quiet, unremarkable, the one who went quiet after I said no, the one I thought had just moved on. But what if he hadn't? What if he had never disappeared at all? What if he had just been waiting 8 years? On the 3rd day, his text changed. Zoe, I'm worried about you. Please just let me know you're okay. I'm thinking about coming over. I didn't reply. I looked at the wedding folder on the table. Venue, flowers, guest list. I had picked out a dress 2 weeks ago. I looked at it for a long time, and I thought, I almost married him. I was going to marry him. I picked up my phone. His name was right there. I stared at it. I had to ask him. I had to hear him say it. I pressed call. It rang once, twice, and then I heard something, a knock, at the door. I stood at the door, my hand still on the handle, my phone still in my other hand, still ringing, and then I heard it, his voice from the other side. Zoe. Calm, like always. I opened the door. He was standing there, looking at me the way he always did, like I was the only thing in the room. Neither of us said anything for a moment. And then he looked at me, really looked. And he said, "You don't remember that day in the hallway, do you?" One sentence. That's all it took. And I knew. Everything I had been afraid to believe was true. And I understood. This wasn't just about me. It was about that day, that hallway, that moment. I said no. He had been carrying it for 8 years, and somewhere along the way, he started calling it love. I looked at his face, the same face from the graduation photo. Older now, different, but the eyes were the same. He didn't move. He just stood there in the doorway. I closed the door, and I called the police. That was it. No tears, no screaming, just one phone call. I don't know what he told himself. All those years, maybe he called it love, maybe he called it fate. But what I do know is this. I found out before the wedding, before I signed my name next to his, before I gave him everything he had spent 8 years trying to take. And I keep thinking, if I hadn't found that album, if Nia hadn't called, what would my life have looked like? If someone knew everything about you, your coffee order, your books, your dreams, would you feel chosen? Or would you realize you were never alone? Because I almost didn't.